speaking of the 50s, back in the 50s, it's a very different sports landscape at Columbia. For one, they didn't have a lacrosse team, didn't have a soccer team. But concerning lacrosse, in the 50s, 60s, early 70s, a number of really good athletes that went to Columbia decided they wanted to compete in the sport, and they formed a club which was highly successful. We've honored that group in the past. So successful was it that in the early 70s, Columbia added it as a sport. And those of you here know just how successful lacrosse has been at Columbia High School. We are now going to honor John Hooper, Jr. I'm guessing his nickname was Hoop. Is that correct? Anyway, class of 76. First off, I note that we just previously honored a father-son team, and that's a nice thing at Columbia because we consider ourselves all part of the family. For the team that you compete with, for the school you compete for, but also your siblings. And John Hooper Jr., class of 76, joins his brother Paul, class of 78, who was inducted in 2017 as a Hall of Famer. Lacrosse was not the only sport that he excelled in. He also played football, two-way, guard, linebacker. He was the team MVP and won the Brian Piccolo Award. But it was certainly in lacrosse that he made his mark. He was captain, first team All-State, and he was the first lacrosse player at Columbia to earn All-American status, which is quite special, obviously. He went on to play at Washington and Lee in Virginia. He was co-captain his senior year. That school was a top 10 team all 4 years, went to the NCAA tournament twice. And so our honoree from the class of 76, the first All-American lacrosse player at Columbia, John Hooper, Jr.
It's all very well to have courage and skill, and it's fine to be counted a star, but your single deed with its touch of thrill doesn't tell us the player that you are. For there's no lone hand in the game we play. We must work towards a bigger scheme. And the thing that counts in the world today is how do you pull with your team. They may sound your name, they may call you great, you may be singled out for fame. But if you don't work with your running mate, you'll never win the game. For never the work of life is done by the man with a selfish dream. For the battle is lost, the battle is won by the spirit of the team. So you may think it fine to be praised for skill, but a far greater thing to do is to set your mind and set your will on the goal that's just in view. It's helping your fellow man score when his chances hopeless seem. It's saving yourself till the game is over and fighting for your team. After graduating from Columbia, I moved up to Rhode Island after Washington and Lee with my brother Paul and my parents. Followed them up there to start a family business, fish for striped bass, and meet a great gal, my wife Sue Hooper. Sue, not in that order of importance. You come before the striped bass, okay? But every time I come back to Maplewood South Orange and Columbia High School, I'm reminded of that famous line, Dorothy's famous line in The Wizard of Oz. There's no place like home. Columbia is our home. And what a homecoming tonight. Just look at my football teammates that have come back for this reunion. Mark Smith, Gary Scott, our captains. Nash Breen also played lacrosse, two-sport athlete. Jamie Durando and Jimmy Schwartz, both two sport lacrosse players. Jamie, an old school, tough competitor, and Jimmy Schwartz, so fast that his nickname still is Wheels, but it always was Wheels, especially when he had the ball in his stick. Steve Hornish and Charlie DeVecchio, who are leaders of our football team and our first lacrosse team. Gene Madden, one of our quarterbacks. Frank Ciampi, my line mate, who recovered a fumble in the end zone against Irvington to beat Irvington on our Thanksgiving game. We'll never forget that. And John Butkus, a three-sport athlete, probably one of the best football players ever to come out of Columbia and to go on to play big-time college football. He won a national championship at Lehigh as a defensive end and outside linebacker. And two special gals are here tonight. Susan Morrison and Ginny Klein came tonight, who are here for their loved ones and our teammates that have passed but are in our thoughts. Ricky Morrison and Greg Klein, two of our teammates. But our coach, Tom Levine, said up at Underhill Field, he said in a preseason speech, he said, we're going to be winners, and he was right. Whether our time playing football at Columbia was the most important things that we've ever done, and whether it was the hard-fought battles won and lost on the field or the long-time friendships we've made, Columbia football was priceless. But the story of how lacrosse got its start is the reason that I'm here tonight, not what a 165-pound linebacker and left guard did up at the Underhill football field, that's for sure. Now, my brother Paul and I started playing lacrosse. I was in the 3rd grade, Paul was in the 2nd grade, and down at the Maplewood Clinic. And over time, he and I and our new lacrosse friends, who ultimately became our teammates, Nash Breen and Bruce Pearl, we were indoctrinated into a program, called the Maplewood Big Green Club, that had at its core an incredible team spirit. And then exactly 50 years ago, this month, it seemingly came to an end at the final banquet, very much like this, up at the Little Club in Maplewood. It was a team banquet, but it became a celebration of lacrosse in this town. And our coach at the time, Glenn Brown, stood up. He was nervous. There were a lot of people who were nervous that the club should not go into Columbia, that somehow the spirit would wane and evaporate. And our coach at the time, Glenn Brown, stood up and gave a speech. It was only 2 sentences, and I remember it word for word. I'm going to read it. The spirit of this lacrosse program is something extremely unique, not only in this community, but the entire state of New Jersey. Fellas, don't let it die. Don't let it die. The big question on everybody's mind is who are they going to get to lead this program to the next chapter? And who was going to be chosen to keep it on its path to excellence? Then later that summer, lightning struck lacrosse in Maplewood, South Orange, and Columbia High School, when Bob Curcio, one of the best coaches in the history of New Jersey, was named our coach. Okay, with Curcio, we had someone that was young and energetic, certainly, but who had a pride in attention to detail, knowledgeable, committed to excellence, and hungry for victory. And I could say, when I went to Washington and Lee, my coach there, Jack Emmer, was recognized as one of the best coaches in college lacrosse at the time. He brought our little program, a little Division III program, to prominence among the Division I powerhouses of the time. Virginia, Syracuse, Towson, where we had to battle Steve Hornish, who turned defenseman, Jimmy Schwartz, Charlie Delvecchio, and Jamie Durando. All we can do to get by those guys. But what I can say with certainty is those two programs were run identically. On day one, we were taught how to hold a stick, both places, how to run with the ball, how to pass it, how to catch it, how to shoot, right down to the pregame scouting reports. The only way you could tell Curcios from Emmers was Curcios was handwritten and mimeographed. Emmers was typed and printed. Other than that, if you mixed them up, they were identical. But the bottom line is, they had given us a coach that belonged at a different level, and the highest level. And with his leadership, Columbia was a contender immediately. Right from the very first game in school history that we played, up at Newton, and we beat Newton in the rain, the sleet, and the snow, on the cow pasture field where the puddles actually froze at halftime. To our senior year when we traveled to Lawrenceville, a team loaded with talent, Lawrenceville Prep, and headed for the Ivies, Middlebury, the Nescac schools. We lifted that Duck Trophy at the end of the game and took it on our bus back to Columbia, up the New Jersey Turnpike, just the way the Maplewood Big Green had done so many times over the 2 decades prior. John Kenny, who was the first Columbia High School captain, made a post recently on Facebook, and it read, "Lacrosse is a bloodline that ties us together forever." And this is what he meant by that. Richie Schwartz played attack for Maplewood Club and went on to NC State. He came back to work with us after his college season. Richie assisted extensively before becoming the head coach at Hanover Park, and his efforts had a tremendous impact on the young Columbia program. Coach Schwartz, thank you. The Kenny brothers, Matt and John, were experts in the face-off in town, and Matt tutored me when I was in middle school. Then John Kenny continued throughout Columbia. Then as a senior, when I was a senior, I met with Jack Francis and Jay Harkey before practice when he was a freshman, when they were freshmen, and we would work on the face-off. Jack was quick to master the technique, a lot faster than me. And he went on to lead Columbia to its first state championship and then to Maryland, where he became an All-American and face-off specialist. Our first team All-State goalie, Ed Delvecchio, was one of the best ever to play here at Columbia, was mentored by his predecessor in the cage, Bruce Pearl, that's here tonight. Ed lost his battle with cancer last year. We miss him tonight. His smile alone would light up this entire room. When I spoke with Eddie before he passed, he explained how Bruce Pearl had made such a tremendous contribution to his success. This is a snapshot into the story of how the Columbia High School lacrosse family was born, out of the spirit and traditions of the Maplewood Club. And because of that, what I'm most proud of, and what this award truly represents, is that collectively, myself and my teammates, we had a hand in doing the important work of transitioning the special gift of lacrosse in Maplewood and South Orange to Columbia High School, to those great young players coming up and just waiting for their chance. Many of them were here tonight, 6 straight New Jersey State Championship appearances and 2 titles. And the incredible pride and love that we have for our program. The spirit of Columbia lacrosse is a flame that burns brightly inside us all today. It will never die. It will never die. My time is up. My time is up, but I have one final thought before I sign off. I mentioned that my brother Paul and I started our lacrosse careers at the Maplewood Clinic. We'd walk down to Memorial Park together with our gear strung over our sticks. We were only in the 2nd grade. And then in college, we actually ended up playing against each other twice. Paul attended Washington College. My team won both times despite Paul scoring 4 goals and having 2 assists in the 2nd game. But the fact that he almost beat us single-handedly is not why I have so much admiration for my brother, Paul Hooper. It's widely thought that younger brothers look up to older brothers. And it's true that Paul took my Columbia number, jersey number 54, and my college number 2. But let me say tonight that I'm one of those older brothers that looks up to my younger brother, Paul Hooper. I've been extremely fortunate to have Paul growing up, a business partner for over 40 years, and best friend since day one. Paul is a leader with a tenacious drive to succeed, along with a gift of inspiring of others, as he has always inspired me. Paul's loyalty is unconditional. He has been the man always there to encourage me as we fought through challenges and adversities of running a small family business. Just keep plugging, bro. We're gonna get through this. And with his positive attitude, together we always found a way. I know that my life would not have been as rewarding and flat out fun without my brother Paul by my side. Paul, thank you for everything you've done for me. I love you very much. In closing, I was born on May 9th, as was my lineman, Frank Ciampi. So this is a birthday celebration I'll never forget. But to all my old friends and my new friends tonight, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank you for the many times you get in touch with me and for all your contribution to my happy memory. I'd like to thank you for the friendly smile with which you always greet me and for the kind and thoughtful and the gracious way you treat me. You are shining symbols of a friendship really true, an inspiration wonderful in all I've tried to do. And you're a soothing comfort to my simplest, smallest sorrow, and you instill the hope I need for every new tomorrow. And so I'd like to thank you all for the joy and the favor you extend, and I pray that God will bless you always, my dear and faithful friends.